Come on, honey, it'll be fun.
I'm not going!
Chihiro, just wait in the car then. Ah, look at this.
Hello in there? Does anybody work here?
Come in, Chihiro, it looks delicious.
Anybody?
I don't want any. We're gonna get in trouble. Let's just get out of here.
Chihiro, you have to try this. It's so tender.
Mustard?
Thank you.
Come on, you guys. You can't.
Come on.
Come on, quit eating. Let's get out of here.
I mean, listen to your daughter. She's trying to tell you not to eat the food that is randomly out with nobody around. You don't know how long it's been there. Parents, come on, man. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Cinema Psych Podcast, the podcast where psychology meets film. I am your host, as always, Dr. Alex Swan, and in this episode, we're going to go down the animated route and explore some foreign film, though we are going to be using the English dub version. We are talking Spirited Away, considered to be one of the best animated films ever. You may have seen it. Came out in 2001, and it is a Japanese film created by Hayao Miyazaki, written and directed by him, to be specific. And it was produced by Toshio Suzuki and animated by Studio Ghibli. Studio Ghibli being one of the more famous anime studios, producing some wonderful works, including this film, Spirited Away. I'm going to give you the voice cast for the English dubbed version. But before I do, I just want to explain a little bit more about the movie itself. Miyazaki wrote the movie based on his friend's 10-year-old daughter. His friend was Seiji Okuda, and his daughter was 10 years old at the time. Seiji Okuda is the film's associate producer. It was produced with $19 million. And animation began in 2001. John Lasseter of Pixar fame convinced Walt Disney to buy the North American distribution rights, and so it was distributed by Disney. Although, interestingly, Studio Ghibli must have distribution rights now by others, because I watched this on HBO, so those distribution rights, or streaming rights at least, must be with Warner Brothers. Let me remind you, $19 million was the budget. It made almost $400 million worldwide, so massive, massive success. Again, considered to be one of the greatest animated films of all time, right? And animated films have been around since the late 1930s, at least talkies will say, right, with Snow White. And so they've been around for almost 100 years. Top 5, I would imagine. It was the highest grossing movie in Japanese history until a demon movie in Japan surpassed it in 2020. And I guess that's adjusted for inflation. I'm not entirely sure. The film itself won the Golden Bear at the 2002 Berlin International Film Festival and became the first hand-drawn, non-English language animated film to win the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature at the 75th Academy Awards. It's a pretty phenomenal film if you consider its entire history. And with the help of John Lasseter and his Pixar and Disney connections, the English dub voice cast is actually pretty stacked. A lot of names that you might recognize here. So the main character, we're probably going to interchange her names, but is Chihiro. Partway through the first act, her name is changed to Sen because the antagonist of the movie, Yubaba, takes one of her kanji away in her name, and it becomes Sen. So Chihiro and Sen, same character, voiced by Davy Chase. You may recognize Davy's voice because she was the voice of Lilo in the original Lilo and Stitch, as well as a few of the sequels that came after. So I think that's pretty cool. She was also Samantha Darko in Donnie Darko, and was the child antagonist, the little girl that comes out of the well and the TV screen in The Ring. So she's had a pretty good run. She was in Big Love as well. She played Samantha Darko in S. Darko, which was a direct-to-TV adaptation of Donnie Darko, and then a few other things since then. So that's Davy Chase, which is pretty cool. Jason Marsden plays Haku, which is the spirit of the Kohaku River. He has a very notable voice, does a lot of voice acting. Suzanne Plachette plays Yubaba and her twin sister Zeniba. This is Suzanne Plachette's last role before her death in 2008. Susan Egan plays Lynn, a character in the spirit world that helps Chihiro. Kamaji, a boiler worker, is played by David Ogden Stiers. You might recognize that name because that is Cogsworth from Beauty and the Beast. Probably his most famous voice role. Tara Strong plays Bo, which is Yubaba's baby, also turned into a little mouse. Tara Strong, also of significant voice acting fame. Aniyaku, who is the assistant manager, is voiced by John Ratzenberger, who is the Pixar statue, right? Michael Chiklis plays Chihiro's father, Akio, and Lauren Holly plays Chihiro's mother, Yuko. Bob Bergen of Pixar notoriety also voices the no-face spirit, kind of like the it's kind of just the vocalizations there, and Oageru. And then there are several other spirits and other voice roles that are played by a few other voice actors. But those are the strong ones. So we're going to get into this one because the message is very clear by Hayao Miyazaki. Like, he had a vision for this, and there are a ton of phenomenal themes as well as psych concepts that are hidden within this. Brief overview of the plot, okay? So the Ogino family is headed up to their new house, and they end up on a dirt road that takes them up to the top of a hill. They're blocked by a spirit stone. They get out because they see this tunnel. They walk through this tunnel, and they find this resort town. The resort town is 100% deserted, and for some reason, these parents are like, let's keep exploring, to Chihiro's protests. Well, they see some food at a stand and they start gobbling on it. And I'm like, what are you doing eating this food? You don't know how long it's been there. You don't know who put it out. You don't know what's in it. It could be poison. Chihiro's like, let's go. They turn into pigs, yo. They turn into pigs. And then spirits start showing up. And Chihiro's like, what the heck is going on? And then the parents get corralled with the other pigs. And she's like, what? She runs into Haku. Haku's like, cross the river before sunset. She tries to get to the river before sunset, and bam, it's flooded. Can't do it. After that, a series of events occur. She has to get a job in the spirit world so she can have any attempt at getting her parents freed from the clutches of Yubaba. She has to get a job from Yubaba. Yubaba gives her a job. She asks Lynn for help. A series of events occur where she's just like learning how to navigate the spirit world, gain her voice, use her own inherent kindness as a means to teach others kindness, etc. Befriends Yubaba's son, Bo, and meets Yubaba's twin sister Zeniba. Zeniba helps. Along the way, we meet No Face, who is a demon who gobbles up people but is sort of wayward. And yeah, a lot of things happen. And spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, she is able to free her parents, and they end up on their journey to their new house. It's a great little story, and it has a lot of stuff in it. When we get in with our guest here, I'll save my thoughts for the movie, but I have to say, as a piece of film, there is no doubt in my mind why so many people think this is Miyazaki's masterpiece. Maybe not his best film to some, but certainly his masterpiece. And I was able to cross it off my 100 film masterpiece poster when I watched it. And so I'm getting closer to having the entire board completed. Almost done. I have about a dozen left to see. So let's jump into the spirit world and talk Spirited Away. My guest host today is Dr. Ethan Harrod. Ethan is an assistant professor of psychology at Mount Mary University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Before he was a professor, he earned a master's degree in social science from the University of Chicago and studied the physiology of vicarious stress and bullying. And then he went on to earn a master's, a second one, and his Ph.D. in psychology from the University of Madison, where he studied primate social structures, social rejection, cultural migration patterns, heart rate variability, and the health impacts of prejudicial vigilance, where he saw those works published in journals like Nature. Wow. Scientific Reports, excellent. Emotion, and Frontiers in Psychology. Ethan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I am happy to have you on. So we were going to talk to each other a few months from this recording. We're recording in May of 2026, just for the people who listen to this in the future and are like, now what? May 2026. But we were supposed to record in February of 2026. Mm-hmm. What happened? He says cheekily.
Well, I had my first child, my daughter Gwen, was born about 2 days before we were supposed to record. It had been a possibility, but I had hoped that she wouldn't show up too early. And of course, she jinxed it and showed up like 3 weeks ahead of time.
We jinxed it.
About to record.
We jinxed
it. Yes.
We jinxed it. We put it into the universe. Congratulations on
Thank
the
you very
new
much.
one. So she is now, what, 3 and a bit months old?
Yeah, she'll be 4 months old in a few weeks or so.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, so she's just turned on. Her brain has just come online a little bit.
I love
she's less of like a little fleshy lump that you keep alive.
You have to keep
she's
alive.
She's smiling and interacting and kind of giving you a little bit of the effort that you put in back. So it's my wife yesterday said, I think it's worth it now, which is which I agree with. Yeah,
it's like you get it and you're like, oh, what if they just feed and sleep and cry and poop and pee and feed and sleep, and it's like, come on, do something.
It might be the most parent brag ever, but she slept for 9 hours yesterday. So
awesome.
That's like the most parent brag I could give out there, to be like,
absolutely.
We got to sleep the whole time and we're doing bedtime. And anyways, but it's been going really well. But she threw a wrench into our original plans.
Yes.
But I'm glad we could make it up. And so quickly, you were very kind to get in so soon after we had to reschedule.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to catch you on paternity leave and not have to worry about the end of the semester and anything else like the true academic / professor, then absolutely. Like, that's perhaps the best. The next possible thing to do for an academic is like, can I catch you on sabbatical, you know?
Yeah. This is sort of like my first turning my brain back on into the academic world, because I've been a little tuned out. Mm-hmm. I went to MPA with some students back in April, but besides that,
I missed you. I was supposed to go.
Oh yeah, I hadn't gone actually since I was an undergrad with my advisor presenting work, and then I actually saw that advisor there, and it was like a whole full circle moment that sent me into a spiraling I'm old sort of crisis, but overall a good experience.
Yeah, I said I was supposed to go there, but not to throw her under the bus at all, but just different priorities. My wife had to do some work travel, and her work is a little more rigid than mine, and this was sort of like a side trip, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to go to MPA for my job. So yeah, so she got the Uno reverse card there. So I unfortunately I did miss my student's poster, but I got some pictures, so that was great.
That's good.
Yeah. So you went with some students and you
Yeah.
teach at Mount Mary University. Now
Yes.
we have a connection to Mount
yeah.
Mary University because you are a current professor there. And when I was starting out my full-time faculty, well, full-time / I just graduated from doctoral school, so to speak, I taught courses at Mount Mary University.
Yes. Yeah.
My parents live just outside of Milwaukee proper in Waukesha.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and California was far too expensive to stay in, so we packed up and headed to Milwaukee to start fresh. My daughter was soon to be born later that year, and our connection is with, and I have to give her a shout out because I wished her a happy birthday a few days ago, and she responded on Facebook, and she was so tickled about all of the things that were happening with me. Shout out to Laurel End for giving this person, she had no idea about, a adjunct job.
Yes, Dr. End is fantastic. I've only been able to really speak with her a few times because she was retiring, and that was the position that I ended up filling.
Gotcha.
But I do hear it even now still. Now they're seniors, or even sometimes our master's students that were here in their undergrad. They sing her praises, and she very kindly has kept in touch and reached out a few different times. And I think she's even every now and then stepped in to still teach a class.
Look at her,
adjunct occasionally. So she can't stay away. I don't know if that tracks with what you know about her, but I've only heard amazing things.
I think so. I would imagine that retiring probably was in the cards, but I don't think you can keep that kind of person away from the classroom that much.
Yeah.
Like a good friend of mine, Karen Brackey, retired recently, and she's still involved with all of the Society for the Teaching of Psychology stuff. She's the editor of the Science of Teaching and Learning journal. So, like, honestly, you kind of just keep going. Maybe you're done in the classroom, but you got to keep going. So that's our connection. You introduced yourself at an annual conference on teaching a couple of years ago, and so we talked then, and then we talked again last year. So it's been fun to try and making those connections, and I'm happy to have you on because you had such great suggestions, and you more than one suggestion than Spirited Away. We'll get to that one in a second, but you have one more connection.
I was gonna say, you have
one more connection, which is,
I'm like, are you not there?
Weird, which is very strange. But yeah, what is that connection?
You are a professor at Eureka College.
Correct.
Which is small town, Illinois.
Yep.
I think kind of similar in makeup to Mount Mary, which is also small.
Quite a bit smaller
Differences.
than even I think the undergraduate, but yeah,
yours was maybe 500 when I was looking at Eureka College as a perspective. So I don't know if it's changed too much. Mount Mary's around 700.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Interesting.
With just undergrads.
Realize, yeah, right. There are master's students there, and a few.
Our graduate pool pushes it to about 1,100, 1,200. But we are still pretty small. But my family, has like a ton of connections to Eureka College. My grandparents are from Eureka. My parents met at Eureka College. My aunt and uncle met at Eureka College.
Wow.
My great aunt and my great uncle met there. My grandpa went there. My great grandpa went there. And then my great great grandpa was the dean there and was like in the same class as Ronald Reagan.
Wow.
If that happens, your grandparents are going to talk about it forever and ever and ever. And so there's a zillion connections. And I went there only like one or two times really when I was a prospective college student looking around. And it was for I don't know if maybe this is made up. Is the Harrod Hall a thing on campus?
It is. It is one of the dorm halls.
Okay. So very weird and niche flex to say that my family has the Harrod Hall in Eureka College. My grandpa's going to go into an early grave as he listens to this podcast.
You're going to be like, you have to listen to it at least the first half an hour.
He's going to spam you with a lot of emails.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. I would love it.
Feel free to respond politely. And then, block them afterwards if you need.
No, this is great because here's the thing. Eureka is one of those, and it's not even it's not even the oldest college in Illinois or anything like that. But, it has the claim to fame with Reagan, and we're sort of going to run that into the ground as much as possible until a prospective student is like, who is Ronald Reagan? And at that point, you're kind of like, all right, well, what do we do now?
Out there in the middle of the square, yeah.
Right. But it's got a rich history beyond that, because it was the third in the nation to admit men and women on equal basis.
Yeah.
Before a ton of other well-known diversity-related schools in the country. And so it has like all of this stuff. And so I would love to hear from your grandparents, because I can point them to and I'm sure they already know this, but I can point them to the archivist, because we have an archivist who is collecting all of these things.
And I'm sure that archivist is sick of hearing from my grandpa already. I'm sure he's been there, but yeah, I just thought that was strange. I just remember I was looking on the app for the convention app for the Society for the Teaching of Psychology, and you can search by school names and stuff. And I saw yours pop up, and I recognized it through, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I had actually watched your online social psychology lecture when I was prepping some of my social psych classes, because I was looking, it's the day before a class, and you're like, wait, I didn't think about this topic, and you're panicking, looking for something. And so I looked up some stuff, and I said, oh, Eureka College, what is this? And I looked it up, and then I think I saw the name and the connection, and then I was like, oh, and Mount Mary too. So it was just a bunch of very strange connections that pulled us all together.
That's really funny. Yeah, I made that in 2020.
Yeah,
because of the pandemic. And my admin was like, we are going to offer some online classes for our incoming students. So this was mostly freshmen who took this class online. And so I made these videos to support that, because I wasn't going to hold, it wasn't going to be a synchronous class. It was going to be an asynchronous class. Yeah. And so I made these videos to support that online class. And they were just freshly graduated high school seniors.
High school students.
And I just thought to myself, wow, what am I getting into? But it has been one of my most popular set of videos on my YouTube channel.
Did you do that whole class asynchronously then?
Mm-hmm, yeah. It was 6 weeks long.
You have my sympathy. I just did like a 50-50 sort of flipped classroom design. And the amount of work that goes into recording those videos is so much. And then you're flubbing over things. And I can't tell you how many times I thought I recorded like 30 minutes of it, and then I had messed something up. So even just like one video is a pain in the butt. So to do all of it, it had to be a lot of work.
Yeah, it was. I did like 3 or 4 a day, and then I edited, and then I did another 3 or 4. And then, it was a lot. Well, all those connections, the world is very small. I'll say that the world is very small, and there's some kismet there. I like that. I'm not a determinist kind of guy, a fatalist kind of guy, but there's some interesting universal forces at work there.
Yeah, things just kind of work out that way. I'm more of a go with the flow kind of guy. And maybe I've got. I like to consider myself a little bit luckier than normal, so I tend to have weird little lucky coincidences like that happen. But coincidences are funny.
Speaking of coincidences, going with the flow and just kind of figuring stuff out as you go, let's pivot to Spirited Away. Was that a good segue or what?
I wasn't sure where we were going, but I think that's part of the segue. I think it all kind of comes back onto itself.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be here. Get out of here now.
What?
Leave before it gets dark. You've got to get across the river. Go. I'll distract them.
So before we talk about the psych of it all, I want to know what your thoughts are on the movie itself.
Yeah.
And then I'll give you my thoughts. I purposefully did not include this in my little intro.
Okay. And had you seen this film before?
No.
This okay.
No.
Well, then I'm going to be very excited to hear your thoughts on it. I saw this when I was a kid. I was like 8 years old. And when it got a theatrical release with an English dub, I went and saw it in the theaters with my mom.
Okay.
And I loved the movie. I thought it was, I loved it, and I do love it. I think as a kid, I was maybe fighting between I was scared of the movie.
Okay.
It kind of freaked me out a lot.
Yeah.
There are a lot of scenes that you can imagine if you're a kid are a little bit disturbing or strange And I think that plays into a lot of the themes that I'm sure we'll talk about.
I think a good word is unsettling.
Unsettling, yes, unsettling. Yeah. I mean, it really is about childhood fears in lots of ways. And so when I was a kid seeing it, it played on those. Maybe I couldn't vocalize it, but it played on those. But it stuck with me, and that's for sure. It definitely stuck with me. And I was excited to see it because I always liked anime as a kid. I liked Dragon Ball Z and watching all like the Toonami After Dark shows that would come on that I had no idea what they were. And my parents always thought they were weird, and they'd say anime, which always bugged me. It always bugged me when they say anime instead of anime. And just to see this as a movie, like a standalone thing, and to see my parents be like, let's go see it. And they had a positive takeaway from it. They liked it. That kind of stuck out to me too. Like, whoa, this isn't just like a kid's show. This is like its own sort of thing. And so for me, when I first saw it, I really liked it a lot. And then I didn't really return to that film until maybe late teens, late high school, early college, where I watched all of Miyazaki's other work. And even recently, Miyazaki put out a film, Boy and the Heron. And my wife went and I went and saw it last year, a year and a half ago. So I'm still following up with these films because of the influence that it had on me at such a young age.
Interesting. Okay. So, you're interested in hearing what my thoughts are. I'm coming to this as a middle-aged man watching the movie. Like I said, I was probably aware of this film coming out in 2001. And don't get me wrong, I was into Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! As a teenager as well around this time, but not as much as some of my friends were. And I didn't end up watching a lot of other anime or reading manga or anything like that. So it was pretty much just Indigo League and Pokemon. And by the time Ash was done with Indigo League, I was like, I think I've aged out of this a little bit too much.
I'm there with you.
By the time he went to, I don't know, Orange Isles, which was like the second series, I was just like, meh. And then of course Yu-Gi-Oh kind of fell out of the way as well. So I never really got into anime like I think many younger millennials, I'll say, than me. And so coming to this film as an older person, I will say that I didn't necessarily like it.
Oh no.
There were some things that I did enjoy about it. One of the things that is a personal hang-up of mine, and this is 100% me and has nothing to do with anyone, don't come at me at the comments or anything like that, is English dubs on anime mouths. I'm a mouth watcher when people talk, for better or for worse. And so when I watch an English dub, and this was a problem that I had for Pokemon as well. But when I watch anime and English dubs specifically, not animes that were made for an American audience, because their mouths are a little bit better when saying English words. It takes me out. It takes me way out, because
you say you're not an anime person, but that's like the most anime person critique you could give, which is like, I didn't like the dub, I'm a sub person. Like that's the most anime although yours is for a very different reason, which is like an audio desync sort of jarring effect. Exactly. Which I do get. I normally don't like dubs either. I think I'm biased because I saw it as a kid.
Yes, I think that is part of it, right? And so you have that wonder with it, and it's honestly been my critique of anime. So I don't want to spend too much time like going like it took me out of the movie because it was a dub. No, I also thought that the story itself was a little confusing at the start. I could not follow. Now, it's probably a me thing, but that's a me problem, not a film problem, most likely. But I couldn't follow the story at the beginning. And I also, despite liking Chihiro overall as a character, early on in the movie, she was grating.
Yeah. A lot of anime kids are grading, I think, in a lot of animes.
That's fair.
I don't know. If I see a kid in an anime a lot of times, I kind of go like, I'm not going to like it. And I think it might be for some of these reasons that you'll bring up.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't remember what I rated it on Letterboxd. I think it was somewhere around 3 stars. So I didn't hate it.
Okay.
But I also am not in the group of people that think it is one of the greatest animated films ever.
Because it is
a disaster.
not. Let me make myself clear too. It is not one of the greatest.
Well, a lot of people
films
think
ever.
so, right?
Visually, I would say it's got really strong visuals. So I might give it to, I mean, that's just a Studio Ghibli, a Miyazaki thing where they have really strong animated visuals. And so I'll give it to them in that respect. But story-wise, I do agree it is, you have to suspend some disbelief, and you have to put on, at least in my case, I have to put on rose-colored glasses a little bit for some bits.
Yeah, I feel that to be true. And I think maybe I would have had a different opinion of it if I had seen it as a younger person, but come back to it as an adult, right? Which is what I've done for a lot of these films that have been on the podcast. But, prior to this episode, I've come back to films that I watched as a teenager or even a kid, and then come back with a different lens. And because I was watching this with a psych lens, and it's the first time that I watched it, it is going to change the way that I perceive it. And it was okay. I'll say it was okay. Not that I didn't like it. There were aspects that I didn't like. I'll say that.
Yeah. I think the Miyazaki films, they play on like every film plays on like three big themes. And if you're not like resonating with one of those themes, I think of a lot of inconsistencies which show up in a lot of the films, which I oftentimes think are like story or motivations or character arcs or a lack thereof sometimes. Yeah. I think a lot of times those become way more obvious to you. They get put in the forefront when you can't resonate with one of those themes. And so childhood is a thing that's in like all of the Miyazaki films. Right. So I think there is that, like, if you're a kid, you can resonate with it really easy, especially if you're a kid. You're also not like, you're not analyzing on the same level that we would analyze it now. But I think he really heavily relies on people relating to these themes that he puts into the film.
Sure. And this is the only Miyazaki film that I have seen. I have not seen any of his other works. Again, not a huge anime. If it's a choice that I have between maybe one of his films or something else, I will probably go with something else.
Well, it doesn't sound like maybe, but I'm sorry you haven't been converted. I was thinking maybe this is the great turn, but maybe we're just learning it's not your style, which is fine. But I'm always looking to convert people.
That's fair. My son's just started watching an anime because I think his friends are interested in. It's an anime that was converted or adapted from a manga, and he doesn't have any manga comics, but he started watching this anime because he wants to be included with his friends.
Yeah.
And I was struggling to follow along with anything that was happening in it. I'm like, oh my, I am an old man now. I'm going to start pronouncing it anime.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's the best way to distance yourself from it. Yeah. And some of them are convoluted. There's like a zillion animes. My students love anime. It's like the biggest hit in my stats course. When I teach that stats course and I bring up our anime data set, which is this humongous data set with a bunch of animes, and we look at data on votes and rating and episode count and themes and all that, they love that stuff. So they go crazy for it. So it does seem to resonate. But you look at all the thousands of animes, and in my heart of hearts, I know that 95% of them are bad. They're not going to be. They're hard to follow.
They just churn them out, right? A lot of them are just like churned out. Like the Yu-Gi-Oh was. It was a massive hit, but it was like episode after episode after episode, and they were reusing animation in every episode to pad the runtime to just like make it more efficient to churn out those episodes.
They did fun edits to make it US friendly, cigarettes and the lollipops, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Should make him more comfortable. Poor Haku, he's had it hard ever since he got here. He just showed up out of nowhere, just like you did. But he got mixed up with Yubaba and took a job as her apprentice. I warned him that it was too dangerous just to quit. Go back home, I told him. But he said for some reason he had no home to return to. Once Yubaba got control over him, his face turned pale and his eyes turned steely. He's never been the same.
Kamaji, what if I take the gold seal back to Zeniba? I could give back the seal and apologize to her for Aku. Can you tell me where Zeniba lives?
You'd go to Zeniba's? It might help, but she's one dangerous witch.
Please? Haku helped me before. Now I want to help him.
So let's dive in a little bit deeper into some of these themes and psych concepts. So the first thing I want to ask you is just like broadly. Spirited Away was one of your suggestions, but I think there were a couple of other anime suggestions in there as well. And so I knew that I wanted to choose Spirited Away out of all of your suggestions because that thing over my right shoulder that you see there, that's 100 masterpieces, film masterpieces. And so on there was and so what you do is you scratch them off.
Oh,
and on there is Spirited Away because it is considered one of the greatest animated films of all time. It is also considered Miyazaki's masterpiece.
Okay.
So on there is like Jurassic Park, The Godfather, et cetera, right? Think of a director, think of their masterpiece, right? Milos Forman and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, so on and so forth. So it was Miyazaki's masterpiece on there. And so I saw that and I'm like, all right, well, this gives me an opportunity to scratch off another movie on this as I
begrudgingly scratched off at the end.
Well, not begrudgingly because I'm like,
or maybe
it's a milestone. But yes, there was like, ooh, as I was done. Okay,
how many on there have you disliked? What's the?
I don't know. I haven't actually looked at that statistic.
You don't scratch them off with like different colors.
No,
like
no.
Yellow for mid, it is like red for bad.
No, it's that like silver film. That you from like the lottery scratchers, you scratch that off and then it reveals a stylized image from the film as the scratch off. So that's why it's multicolored up there. So I have about a dozen, maybe a little bit more than a dozen left. A couple of them are Indian films. One is a Chinese film. And then a few ones that I'm like, I'm going to leave to the end here, like Rosemary's Baby. I'm a little bit of a wuss sometimes when it comes when it comes to those kinds of things. So I've not seen Rosemary's Baby. No. But in any case, you offered this as a choice, and I jumped at it for a couple of reasons. One, might as well see it. And two, my masterpiece board there. So broadly speaking, what were some of your reasons for choosing this as a suggestion for the show?
Well, I had been in a very cultural psychology state of mind. One, I'm a cultural psychologist. I actually kind of dislike when people ask like, well, what type of psychologist are you? Because I think you probably know this too, that originally people thought of psychology as like big pillars. And the reality is it's like a zillion Venn diagrams overlapping with each other.
Absolutely.
And so I rotate between saying I'm a psychophysiologist, an affective psychologist, cultural psychologist, social psychologist, but I do all those things. And because of that, I teach those classes. Those are the classes I teach. And so I had just taught a cultural psychology class, or I was prepping, I should say, a cultural psychology class for that spring. And I had been looking for things to use as like a companion with the class to go along with it. And I settled on Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is American animation, but it's heavily inspired by Japanese anime and Japanese animation styles. And that was a great choice for the class and the content and the students too, because it had just been on Netflix and it was something that resonated with them and they all really, really like it. At least the students that I'm teaching, that generation of 18 to 22-year-olds right now all really like that show, at least in my demographic that I'm teaching. And that was my ultimate choice. But in the process, I had looked at other companion pieces, and Spirited Away was one that kept coming up because it plays on not just culture, but also developmental psych and social psych. And I had used it for other things in those classes as well, for things like attachment styles, for things like discussing identity in social psych, but also identity in cultural psych. So I had used it a couple different times. And I didn't know it was considered one of the all-time best animated films. I don't think I knew that, but I knew it was highly regarded. So when I had seen your talk at STP, I was thinking like, oh, that's interesting. We have these connections. What would I even do? And that was, for some reason, that just popped into my mind right away. I'm like, well, that's a very well-regarded film. I had literally just prepped it and looked at it and considered it for a whole class. And so it was right on the tip of my tongue, so to speak, for like what I was currently doing in my sort of day-to-day academic life.
Let's, I think, tackle the lowest hanging fruit here.
Sure.
And take a look at the cultural psych ideas that are presented in this film. And not to say that it's like the only Miyazaki film that you could do this with, but I think there is a level of culturality present even in just the broad themes of it. So first, let's start, Ethan, if you could do the listeners and me a favor here and sort of define what kinds of cultures exist in the world, broadly defined.
To make it simple, I would say broadly defined, I would say what types of cultures exist in the world. There are what we typically think of, which is like broad regions. I think when most people think cultures, they are thinking at a country level, occasionally at a continent level. You know, Africa, very unfortunately, is often considered a country by lots of people, right? That's a very common mistake you hear people talk about. And as a consequence, people talk about African culture when the reality is there's lots of different things. So that's an example of when people think of a culture, they might think at a continent level, even though it stems from an error. But other people might think of American culture, Japanese culture. If we're talking about psychologists, this East-West comparison, US to China, South Korea, and Japan is a very common cultural level. More broadly, cultures can refer to anything. They can be a global culture. We see that now with social media, a global culture emerging.
Okay.
But a culture can be your two best friends. A culture can be your work culture. It's really the sets of norms, values, belief systems that you share with at least one individual. And once you have that one individual, that can be your culture, and that culture can accept more people or change to be a different type of culture entirely if you, say, get a third person added, right? Everyone's been hanging out with their best friend, a third person shows up, and maybe now the vibe is entirely different. For better or for worse, it could be a totally different way that you interact, right? And so broadly speaking, we think countries. The psychologist in me, the cultural psychologist, can't let that question die without being more nuanced and saying that it can go all the way down to two people up to the world if we really wanted.
Okay, so within that broad umbrella, we hear terms every now and then like individualistic culture, collectivist culture. What do those terms mean?
Those are individualism and collectivism are probably the most well-known cultural theory.
Okay.
They are the theory that took a lot of root. I would say, I'm going to get the timeline a little wrong, but I would say late 80s, 90s, they started to really take root and take off and become really popular and put out there as a great way to understand why cultures are different. So any type of theory helps us understand the differences between the cultures. Why is Japanese culture distinct? Not how, but why are those distinctions existing from, say, US culture? So individualism and collectivism are the most common theory that we use. And put really simply, they have to do with whether or not a culture tends to focus on the individual, individualism, or the collective, the group, collectivism. Are we thinking about our social connections, or are we thinking about ourselves? Do you consider yourself to be a smart person, or do you consider yourself to be a professor, right? A professor is a self-identity that is in connection to others who is also smart, but a smart person doesn't necessarily rely on a connection. Are you a soccer player? Are you a forward maybe, or a goalie? Or are you athletic, right? Those first two examples are group ideas. The last are individual ideas. And so this concept of who I am individually is distinct versus my identity and how I interact and how norms are shaped are based around the connections around me. That's the sort of core of this theory.
Haku told me to come here and ask you for work. Could you give me a job, please?
Yeah, I'm Kamaji, slave to the boiler that heats the baths. Move it, you stupid sootballs! I don't need any help. The place is full of sludge. I just cast a spell on them and I've got all the workers I need.
Let's take these ideas now and apply them to the film. How, as a cultural psychologist, would you see these concepts playing out in Spirited Away?
Well, Japan itself, and this movie is not all of Miyazaki's films are so heavily based in Japan. Some of them are set in fantastical worlds.
Sure.
Some of them are set in historical, like World War II Japan. This one, at a surface level, obviously has lots of cultural content from Japan, right? It uses their mythology. It uses garb and decorations and structures and all that sort of stuff. Japan, in terms of individuals and collectivism, tends to be thought of as collectivism. And we can talk about that more because there is nuance. No one place is all just one thing. And I think that becomes clear through the themes of the film. But in Spirited Away, I found it interesting because the whole film kind of follows this individualistic theme, and at least as it stood out to me, which is Chihiro is trying to remember who she is, and resist becoming part of this spirit world bathhouse that she has found herself trapped into. And so there is this theme throughout the whole thing, even with other characters like Haku, the dragon spirit, who's also present and helping her along the way. Even there is this theme of Haku losing his identity and having to find that again. So sort of, I found it interesting because it sort of went against what you tend to hear about Japanese culture in Japan, which is, at least psychologically speaking, there is a bigger collectivistic culture than there is an individualistic one. So this is sort of pushing this opposite idea of resisting the collective and instead finding your individuality.
Yeah, nothing is more individual in probably most cultures, if not all cultures, than your name, right? Even if
Yes.
you are a member of a collective, right? And the group has a higher status in your identity hierarchy, your name is still like you, right? And they play with that, right?
Well, to an extent.
To an extent. Okay, what do you mean by that?
To an extent, because you're totally right. Your name is a signal of yourself. But even there, and this is what I always tell my students, even there is an individualistic lens. Like, your name is you. But, what's your surname? Your surname is your family. Now, in the U.S., a lot of times, your surname is your father's name or maybe a combination of your father and mother's. That's the most common you typically see in the US. Yeah. And that's just tied to like who my family is. But in other places of the world, you see names that are your father's name. Like your first name becomes part of your father's name, and then your middle name becomes a part of your family name, and it starts to like tell a story.
I'm sure.
You can even see that that's common in countries that speak Arabic. That's a very common pattern that you'll see. You can see that in northern countries, Scandinavian countries originally, right? Bjornsson is Bjorn's son. So your name would be like, hi, I'm Jim, not a very Scandinavian name. Jim, who's Bjorn's son, which is Bear's son. Bjorn is Bear, but they would say I'm Jim, and that's my dad Bjorn over there, right? So it immediately ties you to someone else,
right?
So, but the name is an individualistic thing. It is very commonly used, and also, funnily enough, too, if we're talking about like going against collectivism, I wouldn't say against, but moving away from collectivism and towards individualism, you actually in Japan see that nowadays too. There was just a study I was reading before this about naming conventions where family names and more common and traditional names are becoming less common in Japan, and newer individualized names are actually becoming more popular amongst babies being born in like the past 10 years or so. So you do see names changing from collective identities to individual ones.
Interesting. I like that.
The witch Yubaba controls you by stealing your name. If you completely forget it, you'll never find your way home.
Your name belongs to me now.
So kanji is a form of written Japanese, which is logographic, right? There are characters that represent whole words in many cases, right? And so her name, Chihiro, I'm not going to include her last name, but or her surname, family name.
I couldn't remember it, so yeah.
Some Ogino or something like that. So Chihiro is two characters in kanji, but or Yabubu. Is it Yabubu?
Yubaba. I like Yabubu though.
Where?
Yububu. I like it.
Yeah, Yabubu, like Labubu, right?
Yes, that's what it is.
Yubaba takes away one of her kanji when she makes her sign the work contract, which basically is sort of like Ursula and Ariel in many respects, right? I imagine the idea was in Miyazaki's head because Little Mermaid came out in 1989, right? And he started writing this in 2000 or 99 or something like that. So the idea of this like contract, this mystical contract, right, takes away one of her kanji, which leaves just only one character, which is pronounced, transliterated from kanji into English as Sen.
Yeah.
And she starts to forget her name because this is part of the mysticism. So how does that play into this individualism versus collectivism narrative?
The forgetting the name is like the stamp of her individuality. And I actually, when I was a kid, that never, I didn't know anything about kanji. So I didn't really track it. I just thought they're like, you're Sen now. And I was like, oh, okay. But it is sort of, if I'm going to take like a little bit of an analytical leap here now, thinking about it, it is a little bit like what comes to mind is like this identity theory, right? Where you can have multiple senses of self. You can think of yourself in collectivistic ways, in individualistic ways. And those selves become activated depending on where you are, so maybe when I'm at work, I've got my professor hat on. When I'm at home, I've got my husband or dad hat on. When I'm with friends, I've got my friend hat on, whatever it might be. And there's a theme in this movie where when people are in the bathhouse, it has effects on them. They're different people in the bathhouse, really, than they are outside of the bathhouse. And so I sort of viewed it as Chihiro being her individual self that she's trying to find her way back to. Yeah. And when she has her name changed to Sen is sort of like that, that's her potential bathhouse collectivistic identity that she is being pulled to every extra moment that she spends inside of the culture of the bathhouse. The bathhouse is very much pulling her and transforming her. It transforms other characters like No Face, who we'll talk about later, I'm sure. There is this transforming effect that sort of pulls them more towards this collectivistic side, for better or for worse. It's not a horrible, horrible place. Bathhouse, it's not like it's something awful, but it's different than what she is. It's stopping her. It's trapping her parents. And so in her mind, this idea of collectivism in the bathhouse is this sort of death of her original self and the creation of a new version of herself. I think the movie is hinging upon her trying to figure out who am I? Which am I this version? Am I that version? Yeah. And this is sort of the literal, showing the audience that struggle.
I also want to add on here, as this just popped into my head, one of the things that you hear when individualism and collectivism are tossed around are two other words that kind of mean similar things, but sort of talk about the agency of the people within the culture, right? And that's independence versus interdependence, right? So the bathhouse is extremely interdependent environment, right? Everyone has a role to play. Even when you go all the way down to the bowels with Kamaji and him like he has all these arms to pull these levers and everything like that, because everyone is interdependent on him being able to do his job. Lynn doing the laundry, and people in the bathhouse sort of like passing around other forms of money.
Even the
and
soot
has
a role, right? Kamaji Soot is alive and helping, right? Too.
Exactly. And at the same time, Sen, which is this new identity that Chihiro has, is being drawn into that interdependence, right? She is a part of this new collective, right, of the spirit world.
But she can't even exist if she is not a part of that collective.
Exactly.
Right? She has to, it's just eat the food, right? Haku gives her food in the very beginning, or else she can't even be a part of the spirit world.
Right.
Food, big part of culture. Eating food is obviously what gets her parents into this predicament in the first place. Taking food that isn't theirs and they're punished. But then she has to partake in spirit food to be a part of it. But even then, if she's not a part of the interdependent structure of the bathhouse, she can't be there. She's even at risk of, being eaten by some of the spirits who are like, you smell like human, that smells delicious. They want to eat humans. Yeah. She doesn't have a place there. And so literally the very first thing they do is send her to Kamaji, and they say, okay, she's got to work. She has to do something here. If she's not a part of it, she can't be here. And that's why she gets sent to Yubaba in the very beginning, because she has to have a job or she will not survive.
Right. And that takes me to the other side of this, which is her search for independence, right? Her quest, that's the plot driver. She needs to find her parents. She needs to get back to the real world, so to speak, right? She needs to find herself again, right? And that, as a cognitive psychologist, I always see where the parallels are for memory, and Stan Klein, a very influential memory researcher over the years, he wrote a paper, I don't want to say about 10 years ago, where he basically said your memory is yourself, your sense of self. Like, and he comes at it from as like a social cognitive psychologist, right? Self in the social world, memory in the cog world, and sort of brings them together. And so I spot this, and the reason why I asked the question of like, what about her name in this movie? It's because, again, it's the signifier of who we are as people, right? Individuals, and trying to gain that independence. And she's actually trying to gain literal independence from Yubaba and trying to like break this contract, right? With the help of Zeniba and everyone.
In the beginning too, she is, the movie doesn't spend a lot of time, and they make you fill in the blanks a lot.
Yeah, they do.
She is moving. She's moving, and she's leaving town. She has flowers that are from her old friend. They are symbolically dying the further she gets away from her old place that she lived. She's moving through this passageway under a tunnel with spiritual barriers. And like, it is really like she is leaving a part of her old life into somewhere where she doesn't even know what it's going to be. It's not like she's ready to transition into a new part. It's she's a kid who's being taken across town into a totally new place and is going to move with her family. She has no say or control over those things. And so everything that she was is now left behind. And now she is sort of like, I don't know who I am. Yeah. And that struggle is, paralleled with the, I don't know who I am. And then suddenly this bathhouse says, well, you can be one of us if you want to be somewhere. you can live here, and you will give you an identity if you're a part of this collective.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong way to put it.
Just give him a bath and get him out of here as fast as you can.
Stay out of my way! Sen!
Look, a valued customer. Welcome to our baths. Oh, it's money. Sam, take the nice customer's money.
Yes, ma'am.
So I wanted to take the broader ideas of individualism and collectivism here and apply them to some of the more targeted messages that I think Miyazaki was attempting to make about culture. And that is consumerism and greed. Right.
Yeah.
So
environmentalism too, I would say.
Actually, now that you bring that up, environmentalism, absolutely. So like these three ideas, turn of the 21st century, right? We had the 90s, which for the United States and for Japan were really great decades. And so
economically.
Yeah. And so we get this media art critique of where things were going in both of those cultures, both of those countries. What do you see regarding Miyazaki's message of these ideas?
Well, it's hard not to see them painted as this corrupting thing, like they're negatively painted. And as you say, like it was this new emerging concept, and there was this push for economic independence and growth and consumerism, and it was going through the 90s. I do kind of made me think and kind of tie back that he is potentially using Chihiro as like a young person's perspective, right? The youth is moving towards this independence because greed, collectivism, it's not like those two things go together, right?
No.
There's not independence, individualism, collectivism. It isn't like one is good and one is bad. They all have different interactions with these concepts.
Right.
So there is like a growth towards independence that you see in the US and in Japan. There are older ideas of collectivism, and now they're in conflict with each other. But I think along with those, there is now greater environmental impacts. There's greater desire for gold. And so I think I see Miyazaki highlighting these things as he ties them to collectivism, but I don't think maybe he does, but I can't imagine that he means to say that they are an inherent part of these things, but he does tie them to the bathhouse, which is this like interdependent force.
Yeah.
But he sort of is putting all of these as things that if you don't push back against them, or if you don't make your own individual strides, like if you just sort of go along with the flow of things, they are going to continue to happen, and they're going to get worse and worse and worse. And not only are they going to get worse, but we're going to start to, we're going to bring these things into the fold. We're going to corrupt river spirits. Haku is a river spirit. Spoilers. Haku is a river spirit who is literally corrupted by a bathhouse, which is fed by a river, right? He's the river that's been corrupted by this bathhouse and brought in. And it is now a functioning part of the structure. So I don't know. Like he's talking about it as corrupting.
Yeah. So just to use the Haku as an example here, right? This is humans encroaching on the environment, right? And so how does a bathhouse work? Well, you need water, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you use the water? Well, you have to divert it from its path.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that do? It changes the nature of the waterway downstream, which has environmental impacts, right? So, and of course, that is personified, that is anthropomorphized in Haku, and him forgetting what his purpose is, him as a spirit in this world, right? Very mystical elements from Japanese culture.
Well, he becomes like an evil henchman, essentially. That's how he's sort of talked about as like that evil dragon, or careful, Haku is like the number two in charge, as like the enforcer. And so suddenly this force has been corrupted to not just, it's not only just been affected, but it's now serving. And there's another river spirit too, which is fully corrupted, that Chihiro, at that time Sen, cleans off, right? There's that big scene where she cleans the river spirit.
Yeah, the sludge dude. Yeah.
The sludge dude. And it's hard not to see that as Miyazaki saying, hey, if you reverse the damage, you can reverse more. Because the only reason that she can have any success for the rest of the movie is because of the gift from that river spirit that she cleans.
Right. The emetic, the thing that makes you vomit, right? Which she gives to two characters in the movie. She gives a piece of it to Haku, which saves him from dying. I don't know how you die as a spirit, but which
like a curse. He's like a cursed object he's eaten.
Right. But it's just one of those things that it's like you got to fill in the blanks. It's like, how is that a good storytelling? But in any case, she gives him one half, and then she gives No Face the other half, which makes him throw up all of the
people and food and extravagance he'd consumed.
He had vacuumed up into his like ephemeral body, right?
Yeah.
So, which is a great message to say, like, you can clean up this sludge, literally, and you will be rewarded for it.
Yes.
Like the world will return the favor, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of like cleaning up ducks with Dawn soap after an oil spill or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you're saving the environment. Those ducks can procreate, and the ecosystems not happy,
they'll give
but
you
like
an egg that you can feed to an evil spirit.
Yeah,
and that duck egg will
exactly,
make the
right?
spirit
Yeah, right. Those lovely duck eggs.
Yes.
But like, so she has this literal gift, but she also, I think, has a personal gift, which is her empathy. She is the most empathetic character in the entire movie. Nobody else really shares most, if at all, anyone's close to empathy, it's Lin or Haku. And in many ways, both of them are begrudging about it.
Yeah, they're
right?
jaded even.
Yeah.
Well, at least Lin is jaded, I think.
Lin has been there for a long time, right? And so she's just sort of just in this is my day-to-day kind of path forward and like just going through the motions. Lin represented to me like someone who is just like stuck spinning their wheels every day, right?
And it's unclear if those are also people that got lost. I mean, to your point about you kind of have to fill in a lot of the blanks.
Mm-hmm.
It's unclear if those are people that themselves either died or got lost in the spirit world. So you don't know if Lin is a spirit or if she's like Chihiro, who lost her name. And she's like, this is the long-term consequence of losing your name and becoming someone else. Lin obviously must not be her original name if the story structure is.
If this is how Yubabu does people dirty, right? Yeah, absolutely. With her contracts. Yeah. Her one-sided contracts reminds me of the massive contract that Willy Wonka ends up signing in Wonka, the Timothy Chalamet, and they get him to become. They basically indentured servitude, slave him because the finest of fine print at the very bottom is how they got him.
Yeah. And that's very common, like folklore. You didn't read the fine print.
Yeah, you didn't read the fine print. Absolutely,
that gets you in there.
Rumpelstiltskin, all of that. Yeah, goes back to all sorts of cultures. There's always a catch, so to speak, right? And you didn't recognize that there was a catch.
He's destroying everything. It's costing us a fortune. So suck up to him and get every last speck of gold. He's.
Choo.
Ooh, what's that dirty mouse doing here?
Huh? He doesn't look familiar?
Familiar? Don't be stupid.
The one thing that I also wanted to hop on here with the duality that you were talking about with Haku is there's a literal duality in the movie as well with Yubabu and her twin sister Zeniba. Yubabu is not very nice, right? Is the main antagonist of the movie. And then Zeniba is like very calm and kind and sweet and helpful and sort of pushes Chihiro along in her journey. And it sort of represents the two sides of coin, the duality of man, so to speak, that I think plays a role in how Chihiro musters with all of her empathy. Like, I would consider that her superpower in this film, musters the strength to keep going.
I like that you brought them up because I think that they bring, well, I was reading some theories and I've heard people talk about that they're the same person even, but I don't think there's actually good credence to that theory. But I do think they are very similar. Yubaba and Zeniba, that is. I do think there is maybe credence in the sense that they both are actually representing collectivism, and they are sort of having Miyazaki talk about a desire to go towards a collectivism that is about group harmony and about working together. Because I mean, at the end of the story, Zeniba and Chihiro and No Face and the baby whose name I can't remember, Bo, and maybe even some more little characters along the way.
Yeah, the fly.
They become like a little family, right?
Yeah,
and she even says to Chihiro, "Call me grandma," and they become like a family unit, which is a base of collectivism, right? That's a collectivistic sort of thing. An interdependent thing is collectivism.
Yeah.
And so she is almost representing like the traditional, and she's in an old hut. She's out in the woods. She's not in like an urban, modernized, fancy bathhouse. She's not in any of these modern luxuries.
Right.
She's sort of back in the past in what is simpler, but also like kinder collectivistic times, where Yubaba is representing this perversion of collectivism. Like we're all cogs in this greedy structure that is influencing not just the environment, but ourselves in this negative way. We're losing our sense of identity to an extreme where maybe the story isn't Chihiro becomes independent or Chihiro says, I don't like collectivism and independence is the right way. I don't think that's it. I think it's Chihiro finding herself enough to be like, this is who I am, and I'm using that to find that there are better ways to be a group and better ways to be interdependent and collective with each other than what is being shown here. This other way is corrupting.
Yeah, I like how you put that, and it makes me think about her interactions with No Face. So let's take a look at this character No Face. So No Face is this what's the name of
the scariest part of the whole movie if you're 8 years old?
What's the kind of mask that Kabuki? So No Face is this like black, ghostly, ephemeral body, kind of just sort of walks through, and it has a very plain Kabuki mask. So not the ornate ones that you see in other aspects of Japanese culture.
Yeah.
It's just a white and black Kabuki mask, and sort of just wanders into the bathhouse.
Chihiro lets it in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Chihiro. It's like
raining.
It's outside, and it's just like it's what
it's
it
doing
like
that
to
really
me,
disturbing, like and tapping on the window the whole time.
Yeah,
it was freaky to me. I did the whole time as a child. I was like, well, that's a bad guy. Don't let them in. And that's not really what it's supposed to be. No Face is this tabula rasa. It's the blank slate.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's No Face. It doesn't have an identity, right? Face is another very important part of who you are. It's your face.
It's your face.
It's how you identify people. No Face. It comes in. It's a spirit that doesn't have any identity, and it's looking to get one.
Yeah, and he goes around. I'm sort of given he pronoun here. They.
Yeah, they use a masculine voice for the
Bob
the
Bergen
too.
is
the
one who does the
Great voice actor. I mean, I get your points about the dub totally, but they do have great voice actors.
Oh yeah,
and they started a great tradition, I think, of the Miyazaki films having fantastic voice actors going forward. Robert Pattinson was in the most recent one. Christian Bale was famously in Howl's Moving Castle. They've got a lot of star-studded actors anyway. But I'm getting on.
I talk about it at great length in the intro because it is a fine aspect of the movie.
Yeah. Meg from Hercules is Lynn, I think.
Yes.
Suzanne Plessette
is
something I can't remember. Maybe I'm mistaking her name. Yes.
And Zeniba, her last speaking role.
Lilo from Lilo and Stitch was Chihiro. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So No Face is walking around, floating around, and
he gets legs eventually.
Goes through into the bathhouse and has all of this fake gold and gives it away to people so he can get all the food and everything like that. And he tries to give. I have this one scene sticks in my mind. He has this like mound of gold and he's trying to give it to Chihiro, and she's like, no, I don't want it. No, thank you. And like he's like,
yeah.
And she's like, no, I really don't want it. And he gets angry and then like eats all of the people in the bathhouse, the workers, the patrons.
Well, it's a rejection theme that kind of mirrors Chihiro in the beginning, right? Like in the beginning, she is maybe not rejected, but she is ignored by her parents. I mean, that's why they turn into pigs. They don't listen to her. She doesn't want to go down the path. She doesn't want to go into the festival grounds. She doesn't want them to eat the food. She wants to leave. They don't do anything. They refuse her at every single step. And that sends her down this journey that's dangerous. And then No Face, again, is rejected by Chihiro. Not necessarily because she's ignoring him. She is sort of saying like, you don't need to, I don't need these things from you. She's being selfish. She's rejecting greed. She's saying, you don't have to do these things for a reward. You can do them just for doing them.
Yes.
And that is sort of incompatible with, I think it's incompatible with No Face, and it makes No Face kind of freak out because No Face has already been inside of the bathhouse, and the bathhouse is already influencing No Face in some way where everything is a monetary exchange. Everything is for something else. You don't do something for nothing. There's a trade no matter what. And so No Face sees that, and it goes against what they've already learned about the bathhouse function. And so now they're like, well, I'm being rejected. I've done something wrong. And it gets to these sort of rejection themes as well, that then also spin back into the corruption, blank slate themes that we had talked about before.
Not only just corruption, but like literal. I mean, there are a lot of literal stills or sequences that Miyazaki puts into the work, which is he literally consumes everyone in the bathhouse, right?
Yeah, eats all the people, eats all the food, and it's unending. Like there's a parade where they're just bringing him endless food because that is sort of that you're going to get paid. He'll give you gold if you bring him food, and then the ultimate price is, well, you've sort of sold your soul, and the consequences he eats you.
Yeah. But again, Chihiro's superpower, her empathy, because No Face doesn't, I think, want to leave it where it is, starts following her, and through a few more interactions recognizes and this is, you know, a pattern of growth in not only Chihiro's character but also No Face's character, where, you know, her empathy rubs off on No Face. He or they are just like, this is actually a better way to be.
Yeah, it's like it's alluring, and she doesn't really lure him, but she guides him and takes him to Zeniba, to this other version of interdependence and family and community that isn't corrupting the environment, that isn't taking a bunch of gold, that isn't, you know, stealing who you are to make you sort of a cog in a machine.
Yeah.
And so she said she pulls him towards this. I think the empathy, like her superpower of empathy, is that sort of connection skill, because collectivism really is about connections. It's not about just positive ones. There's a famous Ghanan study looking in Ghana. I don't know if you've heard about this one before, but it's about rivals. And the idea is,
no, I have not.
They ask people from Ghana if they have an arch enemy, a nemesis. And then they ask people from the US if they have a nemesis. And I always ask my students this, and I'm like, who's got a nemesis? And there's usually one student who's like, Becky from high school, and we hate each other. And I'm like, all right, well, we hate Becky, get Becky out of here. But most people are like, not a nemesis. No one's out like plotting against me. And Ghanans will say that it is naive of you to think that you don't have a nemesis.
That somebody isn't plotting
65% of Ghanans say they have one. And over 50% say if you don't think you do, you're foolishly naive. You're deluding yourself, and someone's plotting against you. And that was strange for psychologists, because I said, well, Ghanan is largely collectivistic. They endorse a lot of collectivistic norms, interdependent norms. What's with this, like, I have an mortal enemy out there? That's not very better for the group. The outcome of that study is that we learned, okay, collectivism isn't just, oh, I'm a part of a group and everything's great and it's only positive connections. It is just strong connections. It's Zeniba and Yubaba hating each other because they're enemies, in the same way that it's Chihiro making a positive connection with No Face. And those are both collectivism, but they are just different types of strong social bonds that bring people together, positive or negative.
I dig that.
We don't have much time. If you're found here, you'll be turned into a pig yourself. You must never come here without me. Understand?
I understand. Mom, Dad, are you alright? It's me, Zen! Hey, wake up! Mom! Dad! What's wrong with them? Are they sick?
No. They ate too much. They're sleeping it off. They don't remember being human. So look hard. It's up to you to remember which ones they are.
Don't you worry! I promise I'll get you out of here soon! Just don't get any fatter or they'll eat you!
Here are your clothes. Hide them.
I thought they'd been thrown away.
You'll need them to get home.
My goodbye card's still here. Chihiro. Chihiro. That's my name, isn't it?
That's how Yubaba controls you, by stealing your name. So hold on to that card, keep it hidden, and while you're here, you must call yourself Sen.
I can't believe I forgot my name. She almost took it from me.
If you completely forget it, you'll never find your way home. I've tried everything to remember mine.
You can't remember your name?
No, but for some reason I remember yours. Here you go. Eat this. You must be hungry.
No.
I put a spell on it, so it'll give you back your strength. Just eat it. Have some more. You'll be all right. I've got to go now, but I'll be back to help you soon. Just stay out of trouble.
Thank you, Aku. You're a good friend.
We have time for one last question, Ethan, and I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on the parents and their parenting as a new parent.
As a new parent, my goal is to not be transfigured into any sort of barnyard animal immediately. That's I'm hoping
strange.
to wait till they go to college, and then I'll go.
And then you'll turn into a pig? Okay.
Yeah, a pig, a cow, a sheep, anything hooved. I think more seriously, I touched on it a little bit with the no-face stuff, but there is this idea of rejection or being ignored. And part of that is she's being taken across the country against her will somewhere else. And so she feels like they're not looking at her, not talking to her. The parents don't ever really look at them. You don't get to see their faces a lot. It's a lot of shots from behind them. There is this idea that she's distant from her parents. Psychologically speaking, that draws me into and probably drew you into it as well.
She's probably
Ainsworth,
mad
Bowlby,
at them.
She's probably mad at them. Yes, definitely.
Kind of like Riley in Inside Out, right? Her depression has some anger.
Yeah, she's
in it.
I mean, they ignore her and she's now trapped. She goes through this whole ordeal because of their actions.
Yeah, because of them. Yeah, exactly. She's like, I don't want to go through here.
So my immediate thoughts went to attachment styles, like what type of attachment style? That was my first thought. Like, I'm looking at this movie, how can I analyze this through attachment styles? Are they avoidant? Are they anxious? Are they secure? Those types that we always hear about. But the reality in terms of cultural psychology is that those sort of Mary Ainsworth, Bowlby attachment styles don't always really translate across cultures, and partly because they are founded upon US kids. But in Japan, for instance, there was a study, I think in the early 2000s, so it may have changed since then. My info might be a little outdated. But there's a study where a sample of Japanese children found that there were no avoidant attachments between children and their mothers. Like they couldn't find anyone to match what they had defined as avoidant in the US. And that was more evidence, not to say that they aren't avoidant in Japan, that those attachment styles don't exist, but attachment styles are culturally different, possibly in how we define them, but also in their effects. And so I don't know if there's been a Japanese specific one adapted, but my American instinct to adapt them to American attachment styles as we know them is to say, like, well, this feels like this anxious avoidant attachment where she doesn't really know when they're going to listen to her, where she's going to go. She's just kind of carried along. And that has negative effects on how you think about yourself and how you form your own self-identity. And, that obviously feeds into this struggle where she is timid. She's trying to discover herself. She's not quite sure. She's getting pulled along by 1,000 different pseudo-parental figures and guiding figures. And you could maybe, if you want, tie that back to whatever parental style she is receiving from her parents, which does not seem like the most attentive in the few glimpses that we see of them. So,
and I will say that, like, she grows up fast because of this ordeal. So despite her parents' lack of, we'll say, to be charitable, we'll say restraint.
And you could argue that they're under a spell too. I kind of thought they were possessed to eat the food. Kind of seemed like they got ripped off. Like they're like, well, you ate the food. I'm like, it seemed like it was magical food. I don't know. It seemed like they couldn't control themselves.
Sounds like Yubaba is a little,
a trickster, a witch,
right? Change the W to a B maybe sometimes. In some, tricking children.
Show her a pen with none of the pigs as her parents. That sort of trick.
It's like the Japanese version of Hansel and Gretel. Like, come get some treats.
Yeah, it kind of is in a sort of way, except the parents are going to be eaten, but like. Yeah.
Well, also
there are
she
these
tricks
vibes, yeah.
children too.
She tricks children. Yeah.
You know, it is a whole fantastical world. But so to be charitable, they lack restraint, but it does have the added benefit for Chihiro because she has to learn this independence, and I think that speaks to the broader plot aspect of her and her family moving.
She has to do it without her parents too, right? There is this I have to find this interdependence, but also I have to do it without my family, which is very independent.
Which, for anyone who's ever moved anywhere, right? I had to do this a bunch when I was in school. I had to keep moving schools because my sister kept finishing them, so I had to move with her. And then eventually she went to high school. I couldn't come with her, so I ended up going to my final destination, middle school. You have to a new life. And yeah, your family's the same, but you still have to navigate this new surroundings. And that's essentially what she's doing. And you could argue, I don't know, maybe some of the people who are Yabuba, Zaniba, one in the same, you could argue that, all of this is going in her mind, like this is all a dream or whatever,
That is sort of the implication a little bit at the end. I mean, she wakes up and it's like, oh, she left the spirit world. But there is is she dreaming on her trip to this new house?
Yeah.
And, is she sort of reconciling all these things in her mind? There's some sort of someone who's better at analyzing films could dig deeper into the relevance of Haku, the river spirit, being the one that saved her as a child. There's ties to those memory bits that you had mentioned where the only reason Haku actually is able to shake that spell a little bit in the beginning and try to help Chihiro is because he remembers her. He's like, oh, that's the girl that fell into the river when I was a river and I saved her. And that sort of shakes him just enough to be like, I forgot my own name. I need to get out of here. So there's something else going on there, too, that someone who's better at digging into these things could probably spend way more time figuring out than I did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I want to thank Dr. Ethan Harrod for joining me to discuss Spirited Away. Before we say goodbye, Ethan, is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience about your work? Where can folks find it?
Nothing to plug, but if you want to talk about any of these things or you want to follow up on anything, I'm always happy to converse. You can reach me through my Mount Mary University email. It's just Harrod E, my last name and first initial, at mountmary.edu.
Sure.
If you see me at the Society for the Teaching of Psychology, I would happily have a conversation with you there. If you see me at any other conferences, MPA in the future, anything like that, I'm always happy to talk, but nothing on the professional end to plug.
You did the personal thing and produced a human and have to keep that alive. So work's on hold.
I know. Yeah. Now I have to. Yeah, I'm doing that. Yeah. If you want to see photos of my baby, I won't give them to you because you're a stranger on the internet. But if you introduce yourself to me and ask for them, I'll maybe show them. I always think that's odd. I never cared to see other people's baby photos. And then people ask me and I'm like, you don't have to ask. I won't. If you don't want to really see him, I won't show. It's just a baby you don't know. But people want to see him genuinely. So I don't know. But yeah,
I don't know. People like babies.
People do. It's almost like we're biologically programmed, evolutionarily programmed to like them.
Yep, that's it. Well, I appreciate it. Again, Ethan, thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a very fun time, and I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it as much as I was hoping that you would. But I had a great time talking about it with you.
Oh, I enjoy watching movies regardless. So
okay,
and then talking about them. So no harm, no foul. You can't like everything, right?
You can't like everything. Yeah. Anyways, thank you so much.
You bet. And that's going to do it for this episode. Until the next one, thanks for listening.